Hello, I'm Dr. Anna. In our culture, the word depression has become a household word these days. We hear comments like, I was so depressed when I didn't get an A in the class, or I got depressed when my favorite show was canceled. The truth is, there's a big difference between normal unhappiness and what psychologists call clinical depression. Feeling down at times is a normal part of life. Sad and upsetting things happen to everyone. But if you're down or hopeless on a regular basis, you could be dealing with clinical depression. Normal unhappiness is a temporary reaction to disappointments and stressful events. It typically only affects us emotionally. For example, it is normal to feel unhappy for having to stay home in the pandemic and miss seeing your friends. It is also normal to feel sad after the death of a pet. Normal unhappiness is temporary. Usually to recover, we only need time, some support from others, and coping strategies like engaging in hobbies, exercise, or pleasurable activities. Clinical depression, however, is a serious psychiatric condition affecting not just emotions, but the body, mind, and spirit as well, and it requires professional treatment. In clinical depression, a person consistently feels sad and may have very little motivation to do things for 2 weeks or more. The person with clinical depression also has other symptoms like sleep problems, fatigue, appetite issues, low self-esteem, moving too slowly, restlessness, poor concentration, and thoughts of suicide. Modern brain imaging reveals that in clinical depression, the brain circuits that regulate mood, thinking, and behavior do not function properly. Neurotransmitters, or brain chemicals, are out of balance. Here's a PET scan of a normal brain and a depressed brain. The various colors represent different functions in the brain. The normal brain on the left side has more bright colors of yellow and white. This means that the brain is functioning normally. The depressed brain on the right side has more dark colors. This shows the depressed brain has less activity and it is not working properly. If you have ever experienced depression, you're not alone. About 1 in 6 people will have depression sometime in their lives. Even accomplished leaders like Abraham Lincoln and Winston Churchill gave indications of depression in their writings. And famous actors like Robin Williams suffered from depression and died from suicide some years ago. There's some mistaken notion that only weak people get depressed, and if a person is strong enough, mature enough, or spiritual enough, then one should be free from clinical depression. This is simply not true. Depression is an illness and no one has full protection from it. Parts of our bodies, like the heart or the liver, can get sick. Similarly, our brain can also get sick. There is no shame in that. It is not a sin to be ill. Recovery from depression is not about trusting God more, not thinking about it, or just thinking more positively. Even exceptional writers and leaders of the faith have shared their struggles with depression, including Pastor Rick Warren, who is the author of the book Purpose-Driven Life. He also pastors a church that serves over 22,000 people weekly. He shared openly that he struggled with depression and panic attacks for a whole year, and this was before his son committed suicide in 2013. In the Bible, there are many references to depression and to some of God's servants who struggle with it, like Job, Jeremiah, and Elijah. With Elijah, we read in 1 Kings 19:4 that after performing mighty miracles for God, Elijah journeyed into the desert. There, he prayed that his life would be over quickly and that he would die. He prayed, "I'm finished, Eternal One. Please end my life here and now, even though I have failed, and I'm no better than my ancestors." Note that Elijah was a famous prophet of God in his time. His ministry was very successful, and he received answers from prayer that were nothing short of miraculous. Yet, after a peak moment in his ministry, he fell into depression. He went away from everyone into the desert and prayed for God to take his life. His perceptions became distorted, and he told God that he was a failure. Times of despair and sadness affect all of us. Normal unhappiness typically goes away in a short time, but clinical depression is an illness that requires treatment. To determine if it is normal unhappiness or clinical depression, look at the frequency, duration, and intensity. The more often you have sad mood, the longer it stays, and the more painful it is, the greater the likelihood that it is clinical depression. Recall that depression lasts for 2 weeks or longer, with multiple symptoms like sadness, no desire to do anything, fatigue, sleep problems, poor concentration, appetite problems, moving too slowly or getting restless, and thoughts of suicide. If you have 5 or more of these symptoms for 2 weeks or longer, and they cause a lot of impairment in daily functioning, like not being able to do work, unable to take care of normal self-routine, or can't get out of bed most mornings, then you need to get help from a mental health professional like a therapist or a psychiatrist. If you need help with that, please consult your medical doctor for referral. The good news is that there is now effective treatment for clinical depression, which may include counseling, medication, or both. Treatment is completely confidential, and no one besides you and the provider needs to know. If you have thoughts of suicide, or if you hear someone speaking of suicide, it is a serious matter not to be taken lightly. Every 40 seconds, one person dies from suicide somewhere in the world. If you feel like hurting yourself, please call the following suicide hotlines and talk with someone. If you're thinking of ending your life, take down the number and make that call. Don't hesitate and don't wait. The numbers are also listed on Kairos website that is provided on the screen. Recall the brain scan shown earlier? Clinical depression affects the brain, such that the mind is not thinking properly. So, do not make a permanent decision about your life when you're not thinking clearly. About 80% of people who receive treatment for depression get better. Here's a scan of a depressed brain and a scan of the same brain after recovery. Notice that the bright colors returned and the functioning is restored. There are some techniques of fighting depression which I will share in another video called Combating Depression. I encourage you to view it. There is hope with proper treatment, so do not listen to the feelings of ending your life. That is the depression speaking. It may also be lies from Satan. Listen to Jesus, who said, "A thief comes to steal and kill and destroy, but I came to give life, life in all its fullness." Satan wants to destroy your life, but Jesus wants to give you life, and an abundant life at that. Refute the lie that it is hopeless. God is not finished with your life. He is not finished with you. Instead, be confident of this, that He who began a good work in you will carry it out unto completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Believe that God is able to do far more than we would ever dare to ask or even dream of, infinitely beyond our highest prayers, desires, thoughts, or hopes. Trust God, put your hope in Him, and get help.